All right, welcome everybody to the next edition of the Experience Evolved webinar series. I'm so glad you're here. If you missed any of our previous webinars, if you just go to SamanthaElizabeth.com and look at Experience Evolved, that's where you're going to see all of the articles and all of the other content that we have available for you. This webinar series and Experience Evolved in general is for leaders that work on experience. Could be leaders with an organization, consultants that lead in experience too. And this community is here to really support the people that are tackling the real world challenges and opportunities that leaders face when creating more intentional, human-centered experiences for employees, clients, patients, partners, and beyond. Like I said, if you missed any of the previous webinars that we had or any of the articles that Experience Evolved I have put together, you can go to SamanthaElizabeth.com and check it out at Experience Evolved. So today we are actually tackling a challenge that every industry faces, and that is information overload. So whether you are a patient, you have been handed a thick packet for your diagnosis, or you're an employee starting off in a new role with a new company and you receive a huge packet there as well. You are being flooded by a lot of information. So this webinar is really here to kind of help you to unravel that information overload and to give leaders practical tips in order to be able to give everybody the information at the right time, so that we can they can retain it. I'm Samantha Elizabeth. I'm founder of Samantha Elizabeth Coaching and Consulting and also Experience Evolved. I spent 23 years in corporate life as an employee experience and client experience professional. And I left corporate last year just to start on my own of being able to help individuals and organizations create more meaningful, people-centered strategies. So whether it's leadership coaching, workplace culture consulting, or designing holistic experience strategies, that's what me and my team do to be able to move from insight to impact. My work is rooted in the belief that real transformation starts with understanding how people actually experience your organization and making it better. So I am joined, as you can see here, by Wesam Samour. He's a pharmacist, but he's also founder of Fillcera Pharmacy, Albatenius, I'm going to say, education, and Intribia.com. Wesam has seen firsthand how overwhelming the healthcare system can be for patients, especially those navigating chronic conditions. Through his ventures, he's committed to transforming patient education, reducing overwhelm, and building tools and communities that turn raw information into real understanding. His latest project, Intribia.com, creates private disease-specific communities where patients can connect, learn, and take control of their health with the real insights at the right time. So, Wesam, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything that you would like to add to that?
Thank you, Samantha, for the wonderful introduction. It is an honor to be here and to be part of this series. The work you're doing is so important, and I think today's topic in particular is one that resonates across so many industries, especially healthcare.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm ready to go. Yeah.
Great. Well, let me go ahead and ask the first question. I do want to start off with, of course, the problem, of information overload. So you've seen firsthand how patients can feel overwhelmed by that. Can you share an example of what that looks like?
Yeah, so I've been a pharmacist for years now, and I've seen it firsthand. So imagine a patient who just been diagnosed with a chronic condition like diabetes. So they leave the doctor's office with a packet of information, and they're told to go online or whatever resources that's available out there, which there's an overwhelmingly amount of them. So they're dealing with so many moving pieces. They're already scared, overwhelmed, and they try to go home and process everything at once. And the majority would refer to the internet or like go Google diabetes. And suddenly they're staring at thousands of websites, newsletters, emails, and tips and influencers, just like a fire hose of information. And instead of feeling empowered, especially the first stages of dealing with the diagnosis of the chronic condition. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
a lot of these patients would feel paralyzed. They don't know where to start or who to trust. And
Mm.
I had patients telling me that they had actually shut down for a few weeks, and they did absolutely nothing about the diagnosis or implementing any lifestyle modifications to begin with. And they were just so lost in the volume of the information that's out there. So I believe we don't have an information problem. We do have an overwhelm problem
Mm.
at this moment that we need to address.
Absolutely. I gotta say that, for myself and for those that watch my podcast series, Stress Mess, I do talk openly a lot about my condition of stress, having too much cortisol in my body because I have a mass on my left adrenal gland. That's no secret, for people that do know me. And that's one thing that I know when I received that diagnosis that I had that mass and that it was creating too much cortisol in my body. I did go into information overload. Of course, getting on Google, looking up what does that mean? Oh my goodness, can it be cancer? It's not. But it's all
Right.
of those kind of things, that really overwhelm people, especially because they don't have the experience that you and other medical professionals have, within um, diagnosis and the medical field altogether. And so that can be overwhelming. The internet can be overwhelming. I've even seen people use ChatGPT or other types of AI to be able to help them with that kind of information. And of course, those tools scour the internet, for information, but also a lot of people know for those particular tools, they are very affirming too. So you might say,
Yeah.
something like, I'm overwhelmed. And it's like, of course you're overwhelmed, and here's lots more information for you. So have you seen the role of AI? What have you seen from AI and automation and everything, and be able to help patients? Have you seen it help
Yeah.
patients? It's too much.
Um, so obviously AI is huge. A lot of experts believe that this is one of the biggest things that came across to humanity. Uh,
Mm,
and the last big thing that this impactful was electricity. So even the internet as a whole is just one of the feature of implementing electricity 100 or 200 years ago. And AI, they feel like it's going to be this next big shift. um, and when it comes to AI, I'm a big believer that AI can assist, but humans heal. We use AI in Intribia in the background to simplify and organize the content, summarize new researches, guidelines, and common and standard practices. And with AI, because of there is so much data that can be processed at such a limited minimal time, we are able to create personalized learning pathways for these end users or patients. And this, it frees up our experts and mentors to provide the empathy, the mental health support, and answer and address all the questions or the challenges that arises that
mhm.
simply AI is not made for. So it's more of like a hybrid model. We let
Yeah.
AI process the data, and we let people do the care. Uh,
Mm,
and this is crucial because physicians spend an average of 2.6 hours on daily basis working on clerical tasks, a time
mm.
that could be spent on caring for the patients. So AI can come in and be introduced to cut through the clutter and give the doctors back their time to focus on what matters the most, which is the human connection.
Absolutely. I always say that too. Yes, absolutely use AI to automate the processes and to be able to open it up for the human connection. You're absolutely right. I do want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about Intripia though. Intripia.com, as people can get like information there. So when you built it, it sounded like you built some communities, where people can interact with other people, and be able to get more information. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So And these challenges is what made us launch Intribia.com. So we come from background of healthcare and more precisely healthcare education. Uh, and we were for the longest time we've been geared towards the providers themselves. But as we're dealing with on day in day out as healthcare providers ourselves, we realize that these challenges and the overwhelming information that's available for the patients, and we've been faulty ourselves, and letting our own patients merging into that. So we designed Intrepia to be the basically the antidote to that overwhelm. And the core idea is that real transformation happens in safe private communities, and not in public forums where people can feel afraid of being of judgments or trolls on the internet or online. And we create disease-specific communities. These communities, it's moderated by experts, and the patients have this basically safe place where they can learn in bite-sized modules and connect with the peers and the experts who actually gets what the patient is going through. And
Yeah.
it's basically, yeah, it's building a judgment-free zone where
Mm.
real talk and trust can happen, and these are the norm and the expectations. So we believe that this kind of environment would help people build confidence and ask the questions that they've been scared to ask when it comes to their healthcare.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And that is the exactly how I do my consulting and my coaching and everything, with leaders too, is, being able to, because I know, like, when you get into something new, whether it's a strategy or, rather you get all of the information, from your doctor or even from the web,
Mhm.
too, that
Yeah.
it can be, quite overwhelming. And so I definitely see that if you help people step by step, through things. Okay, so
Yeah.
what's your next action? It might be a follow up, with your doctor, or, it might be learning, more or joining the communities. And I apologize, I think I'm saying it incorrectly. It's in Tripia. Is that
Intripio. So
in?
like informed tribe. So basically it's the tribe's concept, but
Mm-hmm.
the what we add to it is the information piece. So it's an informed tribe. The difference between is because online communities have started on like presented and provided to the users in the
Mm-hmm.
early stages of the internet. But obviously, we're here to tackle the flaws of it. So, for instance, you can there's a lot of them online communities that you can go in and on Facebook, for instance, and join a Facebook group about diabetes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you're not private, right? So meaning that some individuals might feel they still have that uh, barrier for them going out there and saying, I just got diagnosis with this thing, because it's very personal, it's very private. So
Mm-hmm.
it unfortunately for a lot of patients, it stands between them and getting the right navigation and guidelines. So privacy is one component of it. The second thing is the moderation, because even let's say you went into the Facebook group and you toggled where you're basically shut, it cannot trace you back to who your real identity is. But at the same time, you don't know who's posting content, who's engaging with you.
Yeah.
Is it an expert? I mean, because there's no point of you saying, "Oh, I did this and it worked," and somebody else comes in and give you a like on it. That doesn't mean it's the best thing for somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know who wrote it in the first place. You don't know who recommended it. And this is one of the issues of when we consume the general social media for something very sensitive and specialized, like the health conditions that we go through as a human beings. And obviously, the piece of the community support and the peer education or learning, it's very important in education whatsoever, and in the learning that humanity been benefiting from all these years. You can find it in college, and like when you work on as groups and communities or on labs or graduation projects, for instance. So what we do here is we basically trying to do that and provide them with something that's private, with moderated by experts. At the same
Mm,
time, everyone in there, they have gone through a vetting process to be within that community. And
mhm,
then number four, we add in the bite-sized learning modules that we
mhm,
create ourselves to say like, okay, there is 1,000 ways of how you can have a healthy diet for somebody who's diabetic, but here are the core basics. Let's just
mhm.
start with those, and then we can worry about the 999 other ways of you being on a healthier diet as a diabetic patient, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you touch upon something about social media because it is social. You do run into sometimes in Facebook groups, people that are posting things for engagement bait or clickbait or posting like
Yes.
controversial things, as
Yeah.
well, just so they can get, those reactions, from people if they make them mad
Absolutely.
or,
Mhm.
even if it's funny or something, but it might not be the reality of what somebody might be going through. It might be customized to
Yeah.
them, and what works for them might not work for others. And kind of take things with a grain of salt. But it sounds like what
Totally.
you're providing is really concrete support, tried and true, not just from some random person, that
Yeah.
these things, that it's a healthy way, to be able to
Right.
consume information.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I do want to talk because, of course, it's Experience Evolved, and we have a framework at Experience Evolved
Hmm.
that is, talking about discover. So discovering that kind of data and information and all that kind of stuff, and then designing, implementing, and analyzing too, to make sure that you did what you set out to do. So, how do you see, with Intripia, how did you see kind of like this framework kind of play out? Because it's a pretty typical framework that a lot of people use. But did you kind of use this and to see like the data, and how did you kind of go through about the design and implementing, and everything too? And how do you analyze it? So let's just go through kind of the
Yeah.
cycle.
Okay. So when it comes to the discover, design, implement, analyze framework, um, number one, I feel like we were positioned, or we were lucky enough to be positioned in healthcare to begin with.
Mm,
And we've gone through so many patient interactions throughout the years. And that gave us the approach of the discovery component of it, where we discover that when, so for example, if my system prompts me to call a patient and say, hey, it's you took 30 days supply of your diabetes medication 120 days ago,
mm,
how come you didn't call for a refill? Did anything happen? And
mm,
obviously with time and you building the relationship, eventually some of the patients will open up and say that, you know what, to be honest, I've been in denial. I just take it whenever I feel like it. Well, I
yeah.
technically don't have diabetes, it's just the doctor said I do. Right, so like all these things. And this is the discovery piece of it. The design is because we've been engaged in the health education space. It was easier to say like, okay, we have the solution, we have the experience, we have the team, and
Mm,
let's design it to gear it more towards the patients. Because as uh, so uh, as a pharmacist, for instance, I realize it's not the access to the medications as a challenge that can be addressed. It has to do with more the education, because
mhm,
I can give you as many pills as you want, but between you and you, if you cannot commit to changing your diet, living a healthier lifestyle, you, the medication is not going to do wonders at the end of the day, right?
yeah.
And this is how we were able to design
Mm,
Intribia. And then when we come to the implementation, we're always implementing, right?
mhm,
And this is the beauty of merging tech with healthcare, is we try this. Obviously we have to have the checks and balances to say like, well, these are the KPIs or the key performance indicators that says this
mm,
works, this doesn't work, when
mhm,
we're gonna kill this feature, when we're gonna add this feature in. And then I feel like it's basically, and then you have to analyze. And pass the analysis, you're gonna be in this loop forever as a product.
Mhm.
You want to always go back to discover what are the things that users are reporting. You want to design solutions for them. Then you want to
Mhm.
attempt to implement them, and then you analyze, are they working or not. Now, um, I feel like when it comes in the education and the learning as a whole, however, we see there's a lot of breaking down, and this is why Intripia was introduced.
Mm.
Because same framework, right? It can work for a clinic attempting to uh, have their patients adopt or adapt to or adopt that uh, healthier lifestyle, right?
Mhm.
And it can be looked at an organization, for instance, out of healthcare that says, okay, I have I'm always recruiting, but I always finding issues with educating and onboarding these organizations. So I feel like the same framework uh, applies, where usually like things that falls apart is tend to be in the last two, which is like the implement and the analyze. Because as a
Mhm.
company, you recognize with numbers that you have an issue with a with let's say like the onboarding of
Mhm.
or like the user behavior to buy in into the guidelines or the education you're providing them. And so you got the team, you discovered this challenge, you said, I'm gonna design another system that works better. and
Mhm.
uh, and I feel like the last two steps, the implement and the analyze, is where things break down.
Yeah.
Because so you discovered it, you designed a better solution, but
Mhm.
then when we get to the implementation, I feel like with goodwill, a lot of organizations or teams fail to consider the human element. So they
Yeah.
just swap out one broken, overwhelming system with another. Um,
Right.
I feel like the real magic actually happens when you analyze how people are consuming and
Mhm.
engaging with your instructions or education, and
Yeah.
then adjust your approach to focus on providing the clarity, the connection, and the confidence.
Yeah. Way you bring up so many great points there. There's one that I actually do want to highlight because on Experience Evolve, the webinar series, I did have my friend Pam on, and we talked about the change cycle.
Yeah.
And or the cycle of grief, or whatever you want to call it. And there's that initial, like when you get a diagnosis, you get that initial shock, and then you might go into denial. You might go into
Right.
anger a little bit, and in that
Yes.
denial phase, that's a really critical phase, especially in the healthcare industry.
Mhm.
That if somebody is in denial and they haven't quite accepted their diagnosis, then they're going to get stuck. Denial could come from the information overload as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I do want to talk, and this is kind of just a bonus question, that I really wanted to throw in there, and that is, do you see in trivia really maybe going beyond healthcare, because there are information overload in every single industry? Do you see it expanding, at any time?
So what we're trying to do now is tackle and focus on healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
and the expansion of that is to let like the elite healthcare providers. So number one, we're working with doctors, and then we're expanding to all the other healthcare providers.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, with the right tools, obviously we're open for possibilities. If
Mm.
that were to introduce other uh, key players that want to copy or utilize the same um, approach to delivering or for education and onboarding for other industries. But I feel like, especially when it comes to healthcare, the privacy of it component, it's very sensitive, uh,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and it's very delicate in way. But obviously, the beauty of tech in general, you can always copy and attempt to implement with a little bit of changes here and there with the right players. I mean, I see that everything is possible. And
Yeah.
there's not a bad idea. It's just a lot of
Mm.
times it's just not like a sloppy execution. But if
Yeah.
you have the right team and the team had like they're set to focus on one goal and they want to do this one thing, uh, I think everything is possible.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. And thank you, so much for pointing that out too, because, tackling healthcare, it's so broad, with all of the, information that's out there. And so thank you for providing a place where people can go and, educate themselves and be able to get their questions answered and not through chat GPT. Um, so I do want to ask, as a final question before we do wrap up is, so, what advice would you give healthcare leaders or even patients with the information overload? What is one step that they can do to help reduce that?
So for leaders in general, I would say I would emphasize on the education, not the information, right?
Mm,
And it's actually a marketing component that a lot of companies, if you notice nowadays, a lot of like startups they utilize, which they realized we don't have to do marketing. Hey, please join us. Hey, come in and sign up. No, they build a huge community with a
mm,
huge knowledge base of how their system can benefit something or
yeah.
like a specific use case, and that brings them in the traffic.
Hmm.
Why? Because there's more people are adopting the solution. Why? Because people are feeling more comfortable with it. So I
Hmm.
think that focus on education, not just information, and because information without education is just like giving somebody a map and telling them like, okay, here's the map, but it doesn't point where that person at that moment is.
Hmm.
So the map has no use for them. It's just going to make them even more overwhelmed. So you want to like focus on repeat questions,
Mm,
and you want to work these in a way to structure them into being reusable
hmm.
content or answers. So, and you don't have to get very techy and savvy with this.
Yeah.
So you can just create like a simple checklist, or like a video, or
Hmm.
just like a learning module on a one of these learning management systems online. Because I think like clear education is easier to follow and easier to stick
Yeah.
with compared
Right.
to this is everything I expect you to do. Check in like next year. Like
Hmm.
I think it's that's unfair for a lot of users or patients.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much. Is there any other key takeaways that you'd like people, either healthcare leaders or even patients, to learn from this?
Um, so I think like pointing or zooming in into patients.
Mm,
Obviously, so we're talking about leaders, we're talking about organizations, but at the end of the day, as a patient, you need to learn how to self advocate for yourself.
yeah,
So
definitely.
we cannot blame the system, even if the system is broken. There's a lot of people who are trying to make it better, but
Hmm.
between you and you only live once, and every day that you lose, or every day you pause or you shut down, or you're not taking progressive steps into your health goal, uh, you're losing that day. No one else is.
Hmm.
So for patients, you need to have like a framework in a way that
Yeah.
how to tackle that information. So one of the great things we do, or like one of the frameworks we utilize, it's focus. So
Mhm.
basically, like just filter your resources. So F stands for filter. So filter your resources. Like so to walk you through as a like a diabetic patient. Okay,
Mhm.
diagnosed with diabetes. You and given like 10 resources to say like, okay, go to them, they're very helpful.
Mhm.
Number one, I start with an F, filter your resources. Out of the 10, I'll do my research which one of them I should start first. Once I
Yeah.
pick one, I forget about the 9.
Yep.
It's not my job to become a doctor now. I just need to
Mm.
focus on this one source. And when you focus on it, your vocabulary is going to build up. You're going to have better understanding of the terms that
Mhm.
falls around the condition itself. So once you're strong enough, whenever you think of branching out to other source, it would not be as overwhelming to process and digest the information in it. So number one, or the first step is the F, the focus. Number two
Mm.
is own your pace, meaning that you need to set a pace that's realistic. So if you're working like two jobs and you have like family commitments and everything, you cannot assume that within overnight you're gonna go through like 1,000 blog posts on a certain organization to tell that tells you everything about diabetes.
Yeah.
So set the pace, make it realistic. Whenever you set yourself up with unrealistic goals, you're setting up yourself for failure and overwhelm, and we don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can say, okay, I pick the website or the source. I'm gonna do three blogs a day, and once you do that, then you want to connect with peers. So if you have like another diabetic family member, there is no point of you committing to a journey together, right? So you say like, how about I will study one blog, you study two blogs, and then all these actual steps, we will work on them, and these and you'll hold me accountable and I will hold you accountable. uh,
Yes.
and then use vetted tools, because nowadays when it comes to tech there's so many tools out there.
Yeah.
Big thing, if you need to track your blood sugar, just
Mm-hmm.
set up a tool, say like, okay, this is the tool. I want to use that one tool. There's no point of you shopping around between like 1,000 of them. Just pick
Mm-hmm.
one, commit to it, and same thing, and utilize that technology in your favor. And the last in the focus is S for small.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, baby steps, one step at a time. When you
Yeah.
set up your plan for milestone, once you achieve that milestone, you can always go a little bit bigger, but it's not going to happen overnight. And what's more important than drastic changes overnight, it's
Mm-hmm.
something that's continuous and everlasting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for all your wisdom too. So where can people find you on the web?
Well, thank you again for having me, Samantha. You can find me on LinkedIn, and if you want to learn more about the work we're doing, you can go to intribia.com or follow our page on LinkedIn as well. We're always working to help people, cutting through the clutter and creating safe spaces and communities, and just turn information into transformation. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate
my
you
pleasure.
being on the webinar
Absolutely.
series. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And for those that are looking to work with a human experience consultant, you can absolutely contact me on LinkedIn too. In the show notes, of course, this will be on YouTube and all sorts of wonderful platforms too. I'll put that information in the show notes so you can find Wesam, you can find me, and be able to work with us. So thank you once again for being here, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.